continue.
Based on your understanding, ma'am, who had the power in that relationship, the king or the queen?
In the specific cartoon of Snow White,
I'm talking about Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, which presentation, which you have used on 2 separate occasions.
Mr. Martinez, you're mischaracterizing my presentation. I don't do my presentation the way you're characterizing it.
Ma'am, isn't it true that there's a syllabus that indicates, for example, that from 11:10 to 12:10 in Studio 3, Alice Laviolette presented a presentation titled, "Is Snow White a Battered Woman?" Would that be true?
That's the title. It was a catchy title.
So is that yes? That would be true then, right?
It was a catchy title, yes.
So, yes, I am reading it correctly, right?
You're reading the title correctly. You're not reading the content correctly.
Ma'am, what this shows us is that with your approach and with Exhibit 558, even if no one's alive, even if it's a myth, even if it's all made up, you can still come to the opinion.
Wait till he finishes the question. Finish your question.
Isn't it true that you can still come to the opinion that the person in this fantastical world is a victim of domestic violence?
That is incorrect.
Well,
That was not what I said in my speech.
and
I have said repeatedly that it is a catchy title, and I used it. But what I do in the speech is to talk about gender and power, and I talk about gender. Mr. Martinez, I'm not talking about Snow White actually being a battered woman. I use, well, you'd have to see the speech and you'd have to see the content, Mr. Martinez.
Putting aside your presentation, now we put aside your presentation, isn't it true that using your continuum of aggression and abuse, and by reading this myth, we can plug in and go through this and make an assessment that Snow White was a victim or was a battered woman? We can do that, can't we?
No, we cannot.
What?
We absolutely cannot.
There's an objection. Ms. Lamont.
That's a mischaracterization of the continuum. He called it a myth.
I think you misinterpreted the question. Restate your question.
Isn't it true, ma'am, that if we take a look at this continuum of aggression and abuse, which is Exhibit 558, if we use that and we refer to something that's wholly a myth, using your expertise, we can make a determination, for example, that Snow White was a battered woman, can't we?
No, we cannot.
Well, then let's talk a little bit about Snow White and whether or not we have some of these issues that are presented here.
We're
in your
talking.
exhibit. Yes or no? Can we do that? Yes, can we do that? Could you do that with me?
You're mischaracterizing it, Mr. Martinez.
Overruled.
I would like to go through it with you. And what you've told us is that these columns are not necessarily exclusive, right?
That is specific to adult relationship, adult intimate partner relationship, Mr. Martinez, and I have no information about the relationship between Prince Charming and Snow White. I don't know what their relationship was, so you're mischaracterizing that by saying that that can be applied to Snow White as a child. This is not about child abuse.
Well, let's talk about, for example, whether or not we can find some of the items that were present in the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and whether or not Snow White was a battered woman, okay? With regard to the conference agenda, that conference agenda that we're talking about, it dealt with adults, didn't it?
It dealt with adults.
Yes, it did. And in it, you said, "Is Snow White a battered woman?" That was the title, right?
Objection asked and answered.
Sustained.
And that being the case, ma'am, now you're trying to tell me that, well, no. I don't want to talk about Snow White now because it involved a child, right?
No, that's not what I said, Mr.
Well,
Martinez.
then...
Do you want me to answer that, Mr. Martinez?
Yes,
I
I
can.
want you to answer me why it is now that you don't want to talk about Snow White as an adult when you did talk about Snow White as an adult, when you made the presentation back in 2010.
I talked about Snow White in regard to growing up and what we believe about ourselves as men and women growing up. I did not talk about Snow White in an intimate relationship with the prince.
What did you say at the end there? In an intimate relationship where?
With the prince or the king or whoever.
My question was a little bit more narrow than that. And my question was that in this presentation, this involved adults that you were talking about, right?
I spoke to adults.
And it involved adult abuse, didn't it?
It involved gender. We were talking about gender and expectation about gender. And it was in a domestic violence conference, so I spoke about it in a domestic violence conference.
Right, and it involved adults, right?
It involved what we learn as children and bring into adulthood.
So it involved what you learn as children and what now?
And what we can bring into adulthood about what we learn as children.
Right, and so for example, if we have anger as an issue in the family, that's something that we can learn as a child and take into adulthood, which is what you told us about Mr. Alexander, right?
Correct.
And so we can talk about a number of things that are here and use this as a guide, can't we? To determine whether or not an individual is a victim of abuse, right?
I'm confused. Are you talking about Snow White again? Because I'm not sure where you're going here.
I'm talking still about...
I'm not understanding this.
I'm talking about Snow White, Exhibit 558.
That is not applicable to Snow White and the prince's relationship, which is the relationship that this is about adult intimate partner violence. And you keep referring to Snow White as a child, and what I'm saying to you is that that's about adult intimate partner violence and not about her relationship with the prince, which I know nothing about after they get married.
So what you're saying is, though, even though this involved adults, and you did say, is Snow White a battered woman, which would imply that she was involved with a man as an adult, right? You're saying that disregard that now, right? Because it doesn't mean what it says, right?
Objection mischaracterizes her testimony.
All right, we're going to take the recess at this time. Ladies and gentlemen, Monday, 9:30 a.m., please remember the admonition. Are there any questions? Have a nice weekend. You are excused. The record will show the jury has left the courtroom. Ms. Levelette, you may step down. Counsel, is there anything else for today?
Just the issue that we talked about that you would address in private.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you said.
I said just the issue that the judge indicated she would address in private with Ms. Levelette.
Yes. Why don't we go back in the hallway? No.